So, welcome tonight to your evening restorative yoga practice. I'm Laura. Thanks so much for joining me. Whether you are joining me live or you will be joining me for the replay, it's important with restorative yoga to have lots of props because restorative yoga is this beautiful practice whereby we can completely let go into the supports that we use for our body. So this will be a slow practice. If you're used to more of a vigorous yoga practice, this will definitely challenge you to slow down. It's a beautiful practice to do before bed, to slow down the heart rate, the mind, stimulate that rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system, taking us out of our stressful day times, and all of the external things that we're navigating and really helping us to come inside. So for your props, you will likely need a couple of yoga blocks. And if you don't have yoga blocks, you could always stack books or use harder cushions or even pillows. You will likely want a couple of blankets. So it doesn't have to be a yoga blanket, but a couple of blankets are always helpful, especially if you get cold, because we will be holding the practices or the poses for several minutes at a time. And then bolsters or cushions. There's different sizes and types of cushions. You'll want a larger cushion to begin with. So this could even be a couch cushion if you don't have a bolster at home. So a larger cushion, and then I even have a smaller one. And if you don't have all those props at home, that's okay. But I'd like you to pause if you're on the replay. And if you don't have the equivalent of a bolster or a cushion, some blocks and some blankets, maybe just pause, go grab some things from around your house that you can use, and then come on back. So when you are ready, we will go ahead and find our first posture of the evening. And from here, we'll begin to ground in and set our intention. So our first posture will be that simple seated posture, and you can sit up onto your blanket if you wish, or block, something that will help to elevate your hips a little bit higher than your knees. And you can be in cross-legged position, and if that isn't comfortable for you, you could always extend your legs forward. We won't be here too long. And as we find a seat, we maybe close our eyes, draw our hands in toward our bodies a little bit. Take the thumb and the first finger and touch them together just to keep the energy within our bodies this evening. And just begin to connect with our breath. And as we do this, we notice how we are presenting on our mats tonight. We notice if there's any story that we've been telling ourselves. If we've come with any expectations or judgments. And then we'll take a big, deep breath and we'll let those go. And you might do that once or twice or a few times and just feel the breath leaving your body and carrying with it anything that you don't need, letting your body relax and relieving it of tension. We're going to find an intention for our practice this evening, this gentle restorative practice. And for that, I'd like you to bring your awareness into your heart space. And I'd like to share a quote with you that maybe will help to inspire what it is you wish to cultivate through your practice. And the quote reads, "There is virtue in work, and there is virtue in rest. Overlook neither." by Alan Cohen. So as we come into this restful practice, we understand how important rest truly is for rejuvenating ourselves. Find your intention, hold it in your heart space, allow the sound of the bowl to send your intention through your body. And when you feel ready, I'd like you to just do a couple of real nice, gentle hip circles here, just slowly moving side to side, trying to keep the sits bones planted on the earth. And maybe you'll take and cross the opposite shin forward or extend both legs straight out. Good, and then taking a couple of circles in the other direction now. Just noticing into the hips and the waist. So as mentioned, the restorative practice is a very, very gentle one. There won't be a lot of movement. There will be a lot of holding and pausing and just allowing ourselves to be in the experience. Let's roll our shoulders a couple of times. Good, and we'll prepare to come into our first pose. These restorative poses are so juicy, and we get to spend some extra time in them so that we can really dive a little deeper into our bodies. So our first posture tonight, we will use a couple of blocks. And you'll take one block and you'll place it flat, and it will be perpendicular to the top of your mat. And then the second block will be placed on its highest height, and that will be also, it'll be vertical. So we'll take the bolster, the larger bolster, if you have one, or a large pillow, and we'll place it so that it will rest back on these blocks. And then we'll begin to take our sits bones and our sacrum to the base of the bolster. Now, if you have another bolster, cushion, pillow, more blocks, even blankets, you'll be able to do a second variation. So variation number one is coming to rest back and opening our hearts and maybe straightening our legs. If you would like to have a different variation, you can begin to take your legs into a diamond shape, taking the soles of the feet together and then allowing the knees to soften down onto those props. So if you have an additional bolster, if you have a couple of blankets you could take and put underneath the knees, you can do that as well. But either of these variations is going to be very nice and restorative. It should feel very supportive for your body. And you get to choose what you would like to do with your arms. So your hands can remain on your belly and your heart if you like. You can take the hands down by the sides. You can extend the arms straight out if you wish, just to help open up the shoulders. And some of you might even have a bolster that has a little loop at the back of it. If you have a cushion with a loop, you can always take your thumbs and loop them in to begin with, letting the elbows open gently. And once you find that sweet spot where your body feels completely supported, the length of your spine is supported, you're finding opening across your heart if you wish, and your legs feel comfortable, then you begin to observe your breath. And the restorative practice involves little to no control over the breath. If you need to deepen the breath every once in a while, Take a deeper inhale and a deeper exhale. That can help you to reset. But overall, we are observing ourselves and softening into the stillness and the silence. Feel the supports beneath your body and feel your body melting a little more with each breath cycle. Giving yourself permission to completely relax. It's so counterintuitive to the busyness of our daily lives. It's the yin to our yang, the moon to the sun, just that duality that's so important. Having opposites, entertaining the fact that there's a need for both. And this is the rest versus the work. It's all equally important. So if you have your hands up top, you may wish to bring them down, or you can keep them there for a little while longer. You can observe the breath and its physical presence in your body. So notice where the breath moves, how the breath travels inside of you, where it feels expansive. And we'll take about 5 more breaths here. Last couple breaths. Good. And once you finish that exhale, I just want you to take your time. If your arms are extended behind you, bring them slowly down. If you have your knees open, you'll want to slowly take your hands to the outside of the knees and just gently help them back in. Maybe pressing any props to the side. You might take your hands down and just gradually take the knees from side to side a couple of times. And the restorative practice is one of the slowest, gentlest practices that we can do. Very nurturing to our bodies. And it can be at times challenging in that we move slowly and infrequently, so the mind begins to come online. And that's where that witnessing and observing your breath is so important. So we'll take our time to slowly press our to come to find our next posture for the practice. So for this next posture, we're going to take the bolster sideways now so that it's going to be parallel to the front of your mat. We'll take the bolster and snuggle it into our hips. And you'll have a couple of options here. So you may take a block where your head will go, or it may be a blanket. Okay, it's going to depend on how this feels for your head and your neck. I like a blanket myself. It's not as high as a block. And you could also take a block and place the blanket over top to be a little more supportive for your head. So as you snuggle your hip up to the bolster, you'd like your bottom leg to be forward a little bit, so the knee bent. And generally the knee is at about a 90-degree angle to the hip. And then the ankle is in alignment with the knee. So you're making half a square. And then you're going to take the top leg and gently draw it back just a little bit in the same way. That half a square, ankle and knee in alignment, perhaps. That'll be a little deeper. So if you need to walk that forward a little bit, that's okay. And then we're going to come to lengthen out. This is a nice, beautiful opening for our side waist. So we'll begin to lengthen the bottom arm, and we might even take that arm underneath the blanket and begin to take our head down for the support, and then reach the other arm slowly overhead. And I'd like you to move it up and down a few times. So maybe take a couple of circles, just circling it back and around so that you're opening a little bit through your shoulder as we begin here. And you have a couple of options as we move into the hold, the more passive part. You can slowly let that top hand release down, the bicep coming toward the ear, and just letting the arm be heavy. Variation number 1. If that doesn't feel good for your body, you can always take the hand and gently bend the elbow to the back of the head. And this may not be sustainable for the entire 5 minutes or so. You'll also have the option to bend the elbow and take the top of the hand to the base of the spine and just gently roll that shoulder back. So wherever you would like to be in those variations, you can always move that bottom arm out of the way, stack your pillow a little bit higher, whatever feels best for you. And then we'll come to hold. And as we hold, we'll breathe. We'll observe, we'll notice ourselves. We'll notice the sensation in our body. See if we can tune in with the most subtle awareness. And even though we're moving very little, we're still creating space within ourselves in a very, very passive manner. Letting the breath flow naturally. And using that breath as the anchor to keep your mind present. If you find that closing the eyes is uncomfortable, because for some people it can be, you can always keep the gaze very soft down the bridge of your nose, not really focusing on anything in particular. If that helps to keep thoughts at bay. So there should never be anything shooting, stabbing, electrical from a pain perspective. It doesn't mean that everything is going to be very comfortable for you. It just means we need to be aware of those types of sensations because they could be indicating that we are injuring ourselves. We'll see if we can let our bodies be very soft. Breathing in wherever you feel this. Noticing how the silence feels for you. Is it comfortable, neutral, uncomfortable? And once again, just that practice of being in the experience and being aware of what your experience is tonight. Let's take about 4 more breaths here, please. Just feeling that breath expanding you inside. And as you're ready, if that arm is extended overhead, just bring it slowly down by your side and maybe onto the bolster. Begin to bring the knees back in so that the hips are stacked over each other, pausing for a moment. You can take that hand on the bolster or cushion and just gently begin to press yourself up, taking your time. Beginning to come up onto the hands and knees. Spinning your torso toward the front of the mat and bringing that bolster there as well. And you can support your bolster if you wish with a blanket or a block, whatever props that you have in place of those things. And you'll snuggle your hips up, your knees up, taking your knees nice and wide. And we'll come into a restorative child's pose. So we'll really draw that bolster in toward our inner thighs. We'll lengthen the crown forward and draw the shoulders back, and then bring our torso all the way down. Letting the head be supported, and perhaps wrapping our arms right around your bolster. And then I'd like you to surrender forward. So you surrender forward, giving yourself that space to pause, to soften, and to really let yourself be completely supported. We spend so much of our time supporting others. The time on our mat really is this beautiful opportunity to rejuvenate and give back to ourselves. So really feel the breath in the back of your body now. Let your hips sink down toward your heels. Your head can be turned in one direction or the other. And let's take about 5 more breaths there. If your head is turned in one direction and you haven't switched it, feeling free to switch it now. Nice little stretch for the neck as well as you turn from side to side. Beautiful. So as you're ready, we're going to come into that side opener on the opposite side. So once again, you will take your bolster now to be parallel to the long edge or the short edge of the mat. You're going to snuggle the opposite hip up and bring that bolster right in toward the hip. You'll bend the knees, slide the lower one forward, knee and ankle in alignment, or you can always draw the ankle in a little bit, the foot in towards your body if that's too much. And then that top knee moves back a little bit just to help facilitate a little more opening through the side waist. You can take your blanket or another cushion or pillow up to the top of the mat and then slide that bottom arm nice and long. You'll take the head down to be supported. You could always use a block here as well. And then take and lift that opposite arm up to the sky and begin to find some circles. Slowly around. Feel into the shoulder as you move here. Good, and as you come back up, you have the option now, if you wish to hold, reaching that top arm overhead and allowing the palm to just soften down to meet the other one on the earth. And if that doesn't feel good for you right now, you might consider taking that opposite arm and just bending the elbow, taking the hand behind the head. Another alternative is to take the hand by the hip or to bend the elbow and to take the top of the hand toward the base of the spine. So wherever you would like to be now, just reaching that arm long. Or softening into whatever variation of the pose you've chosen now. And breathing into that top side waist. And remember, we're more so following the breath than directing it. No control, just allowing. And through your awareness of sensation in your body or where you'd like to move the breath, that's how you will target those areas that you wish to open. Notice into those moments of silence and stillness. The rhythm of your breath and maybe your gentle heartbeat if you connect with that now. Can you give yourself the space to rest? And by rest, I don't mean sleep. I mean be aware, but not active in the moments. This is exactly where the restorative practice takes us. Aware inside of our bodies, yet still and restful. Let's take about 5 more breaths, please. Letting our bodies melt down a little further into those cushions or bolsters beneath us. Last one. Good. We'll slowly bring that top arm back if it's extended overhead. And bring it down onto your cushion or your bolster. I'm going to slowly begin to press both arms in to the earth and the bolster and gradually help yourself back up. Take your time to come back up onto your side, and then we'll come once more in through that restorative child's pose, either using your blanket underneath or maybe a block underneath as you turn that bolster toward the top edge of the mat so you have it the long way toward you, and snuggle in that bolster right in toward the thighs. Inhale and find a little bit of length, and then as you exhale, take the head to one side and come right down on the bolster. And soften in here. Let your body begin to melt. So feel the weight of the shoulders softening forward, your chest pressing into the bolster, the shoulders rounding gently forward, the weight of gravity bringing them downward. Maybe you even flip your palms to the sky if you're not wrapped around that bolster or cushion. Think about the sits bones melting down, so the hips getting softer. The tail presses away, and find a little more space and lengthen in the crown. See it a little longer in your spine. We'll take a couple more breaths on this side, and then I'll ask you to change your head to the other side when you're ready. just in order to ensure that you keep things even in your head and your neck. Staying down for a few more breaths. Just noticing while we are in this posture before we transition to the next. How are you feeling now? How does it feel to rest? Let's take one more breath, please. Beautiful. And then as you're ready, we're going to go ahead and remove the prop from beneath your bolster. Take that cushion just as it is, and we're going to find a blanket nearby. And the blanket is going to be perhaps as a support to our leg here, our leg, and maybe even a little bit to the side of our waist. So we're going to begin to position ourselves flat over the bolster. And you may take a block so that your head is supported. Then you have 3 heights of the block, so the head can be a little bit lower than the bolster, or your head can be in alignment. And then you're going to bend this front knee. And you're going to have that inner thigh supported by the bolster and maybe by a blanket so that it's not cold or hard on your knee. And you're going to soften the feet and you're going to come forward and surrender down. Now your hands can remain by your sides, or you can even bend the elbows into a cactus type arm. Let the shoulders gently roll forward and have the palms on the earth. And we think about the inner hip really softening. So you can always shift your hips toward the edge of the bolster a little bit if you feel like you have a little bit more space that you can find there. As the inner thigh softens down to the earth, everything relaxes. You might feel the breath in the back of your body a little bit here. You might feel or direct the breath across the back of the shoulders. We'll take 5 more breaths here, please. Last couple of breaths. And then as you're ready, you'll begin to slowly bring the hands in toward the cushion, towards your body. You may wish to draw that bent knee back, pressing in, and then just slowly, maybe coming up through a tabletop, so onto your hands and your knees. And just a couple of nice lengthened cat-cow, so you're lifting the heart and letting the belly soften down. And then as you exhale the breath out, begin to round from the base of the spine, press into the hands and take your gaze back. Good, and just a few cat-cows at your own pace. Just feeling that nice space that you've created in your body here this evening, or whenever you're doing this practice. And restorative can be done any time of day, anytime you need to sit back and just take some space for rest and restore. Doesn't always have to be a before bedtime practice. So you'll take a couple more of those flexion and extensions of the spine in cat-cow. And then when you're ready, we'll come to set ourselves up for the other side. So once again, you'll have the block, you'll have your bolster, you'll take your blanket perhaps over the side of the bolster. Position your chest and your hips on the bolster, bending the front knee or the opposite knee this time. Ankle and knee in alignment, or you can always bring the heel in towards your body if you prefer. You'll lengthen the crown forward, and as you're ready, you'll bring your head down to the block. Find whichever arm variation serves you. If you were in cactus and you had your palms down last time, maybe you'd like to flip the palms up this time. And we'll come into hold in this nice, juicy hip opener. Following the breath in your body, directing the breath where it's needed. And melting, softening, finding ease and space a little more inside of yourself with each breath. Let's take about 4 more breaths here, please. Just feeling our bodies completely surrendering. Noticing what comes up, whether it be from the mind, the body, the emotions. The stillness really does help us to increase our capacity to hold space for ourselves and others as well. Taking one more breath. Good. Beginning to draw those hands back in. Perhaps straightening out that bent knee. Pressing your hands in beside your cushion. And take a moment, if it feels good, to come through some cat-cows again. That's great. If it feels good to come down into your child's, you can soften down there. If it feels good to stretch one leg back and just feel the length in that entire leg. Try that. Okay, really just an opportunity here as we come into our final couple of postures to check in and see how the body's doing. Now, when you're ready, we are going to go ahead and come in through a forward fold next. So we're going to use the blanket as a support underneath our sits bones. And you may fold your blanket a little bit more or a little less, depending on how open you are. So you're going to come up to sit on your blanket, and you're going to extend your legs into a V to begin with, and you're going to find your V and flex your feet. So if you can see my feet here, you'll see that my toes are drawing toward my body. And then you're going to bring up your cushion or your bolster. And I want you to find a nice long spine. Draw your shoulders gently down your back. And you're going to begin to hinge forward until your crown comes to connect with that bolster or whatever cushion you're using. You may draw that in towards your body a little more if it's a little bit difficult for you to come forward, so that you have a nice support for your spine. And you're going to keep your spine long. Your head is in alignment, and you're going to drop the hands gently, palms facing up, shoulders gliding down your back, and breathing into this forward fold. A nice, gentle, supported, restorative fold, whereby we can gain a little bit of space with the breath. And you may eventually find that you can slide that cushion out a little bit. And you may not, and that's okay too. And we hold and breathe for a few more moments before we take this fold a little differently. Let's take 4 more breaths, please. And when you finish that exhale, just engage through your core a little bit and slowly help yourself up. Now, you'll have the option to come into that fold again, or If you'd like to change it a little bit, we're going to take a block where we're going to place our feet, and the feet will come into diamond shape, soles of the feet connecting on the block. And then we'll take the bolster. Now it's going to depend how open you are here in through the hips and the length of the spine. You'll have two different options. So you'll either be able to come forward and hold and hug your bolster, or your bolster may again come more so from on the feet to come to meet your head. Okay, so wherever you are this evening, I want you to find what works for you and then begin to soften in. And there will likely be rounding of the spine, and that's okay. You can always hug that bolster in towards your body a little bit more for a little more support. And let's let the arms be very nice and soft. So we're not pulling ourselves forward. We're just allowing ourselves to breathe and to soften. So forward folding really taking us that step deeper inside of ourselves. Just to observe. Observe what we're feeling. Maybe what we're thinking. And as we do that, we then bring ourselves back to the moment that we're in right now. Let's take 4 more breaths here, please. Beautiful. You're going to finish off that exhale. Slowly draw your elbows in towards your body and use the strength of your core to slowly bring you up, just unraveling the spine one vertebra at a time until you come up to a nice seat. You pause for a moment. Just open your heart, maybe roll your shoulders back. And then you're going to remove that bolster. And you're going to take your hands to the outside of your thighs and just help them in. We will take our hands in behind us for a moment, bending the knees and just giving ourselves that gentle twist from side to side here after that forward fold. Good, and holding on one side if that feels good for a breath or two. And then maybe doing the same thing on the other side. Good. To come to finish up with a mild inversion here. So we're going to take that bolster. We'll have perhaps a blanket as a support for our head. And we're going to come to sit on top of the bolster. You may wish to have a block at the end of your mat to support your feet. And as we scooch ourselves toward the far edge of the bolster, we'll begin gently to come down. And if that's a little too much for the back, bend the knees to begin with. Make sure that you feel supported so that your sacrum, this that kind of triangular bone at the base of your spine, that ledge, is supported. And you have the option of extending your legs forward to lengthen out the front of your body here. You also have the option, if you wish, to lift one or both legs up to the sky, letting the poorly oxygenated blood from your feet come down toward your heart. You could do that with the hands as well, or you could do any combination, variation that feels good for your body. You could always stretch your arms in behind you for a nice long body stretch as well. And once you find the variation that serves you best, then close your eyes. Reconnect with your breath, that anchor within you that's always there to guide you every single moment. Your breath is there. And so you can remain in the inversion to finish up today in any variation. Or if you wish, you could always press down into the feet, lift up through the pelvis, slide that bolster out, and then just take it down to support your legs. So it can be nice, kind of scooching the buttocks right up against it and then extending those legs long. They might rest on the block that you have at the edge of your mat, and then just coming to open up the palms as we come into this final few moments of our time together in the practice. Just allow your body to be completely soft and surrender. If there are any movements that you find that you need to do in order to get comfy, to come into this final relaxation, feel free to find those. I'd like you to give yourself permission just to fully let go now. Feel your entire body softening from the crown of your head as if a wave was moving downward and bringing with it warmth and softness and relaxation to each part that it touches. And we'll move it down over the forehead, over the nose, the eyes. Let it spread downward until the entire face is relaxed, the throat and the jaw. Feel it relax the shoulders, the entire upper body, front and back, the length of the arms all the way down to the fingertips, and through the pelvis, the back of the body, the entire front and back of the legs, and the ankles and the feet, until your entire body is completely relaxed. And from here, I recommend staying here as long as you wish, letting yourself be in the stillness that you've created. If you need to come out, then please just take your time, maybe rolling over onto your side before you come up. And if you have time, I highly recommend just staying back in this supported final Savasana. Now we'll close the practice here for tonight, honoring the rest that you've taken the time to provide for yourself this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to guide you in your practice. It is an honor and a pleasure always. Namaste. Have a beautiful evening or day wherever you are.